You're watching PIX Politics Daily with Dan Mannarino.
Hey everybody, welcome to PIX Politics Daily. I'm Dan Mannarino. It is Wednesday. It is February 11th, and it's a big day, okay? There's a lot going on in the world of politics. We have the Republican convention for the state of New York. Bruce Blakeman, who is the gubernatorial nominee for the Republican side, that's happening on Long Island. Also, Mayor Zohran Mamdani has now made his trip to Albany for what's known as Tin Cup Day. So what is Tin Cup Day? Well, it's when mayors from around New York, including New York City, go up to Albany and they talk to the legislature and they talk to the governor about why they feel they need more money to be sent to their specific city, right? So Zohran Mamdani took to his presentation earlier this morning, and what came out of it, and the reason I'm highlighting this first off the top is because it's very big. Remember just last week or 2 weeks ago, Mayor Mamdani was here on PIX11. He signed that legislative that was historic in nature, an executive order where he was announcing these chief savings officers for each agency because he said there was a massive budget deficit, $12 billion. And then we spoke to the Citizen Budget Commission right here on Daily, where they were like, we're not really sure if the number is 12 billion. And a number of folks I had spoke to said they weren't sure that the number was actually 12 billion. And then the mayor gets up there today to testify in front of Albany. He goes, well, because of a bunch of things and Wall Street doing so well, much like the governor said, the number isn't 12 billion. It's actually $7 billion. So Henry Rossoff is on that story today for us. He's monitoring what's happening on Tin Cup Day, but that is a big about face from that $12 billion number that many were questioning to now saying it is $7 billion just a short time later. So that's what's happening in Albany. And then back here on Long Island, we have the Republican convention happening, right? So Kathy Hochul had her convention in Syracuse last week for the Democrats, where she chose lieutenant governor. Her pick for lieutenant governor was Adrienne Adams, the former New York City Council speaker. They are now the joint ticket. And today, all eyes are on the big moment for Bruce Blakeman. So let's bring in Emily Rahhal. She is our digital political reporter. She is there live in the convention center. So what's happening, Emily? Good to see you.
Hey, good to see you. So there's a lot of excitement in the room right now. We have Republicans from across the state here to kind of cast their official vote for Bruce Blakeman as the Republican gubernatorial candidate. He's expected to be running with Madison County Sheriff Todd Hood. And we're entering the third day of the convention. So they've been here for 3 days. They've already chosen the nominee for state controller and attorney general. So lots of excitement right now. We're having a series of speakers. Bruce Blakeman is expected to take the stage just before lunchtime. And then they'll cast their votes and kind of have a victorious moment for him.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big moment that everybody waits for, right? To cast the vote and hear that he's the actual nominee. But there was some drama. There was some drama this week with the lieutenant governor pick, right? I mean, he had originally chosen one person who then did an about face and said, actually, no.
Yeah, absolutely. They had somebody who kind of said, I don't know that I can really add to this ticket. This is not for me. It was a sheriff. Now we're on the Madison County Sheriff. I mean, the angle here is obviously they're trying to kind of, through these speeches, sell Bruce Blakeman as a good pick for public safety. It's a huge priority. That's what we're hearing in the room. So picking the Madison County Sheriff makes a lot of sense. U.S. News and World Report called Nassau County the safest county in America. That's something I've heard again and again and again.
Yeah.
But there was also some reported drama on the Democrat side as well with the lieutenant governor pick.
Oh, yeah.
There had reportedly been some people who turned down Hochul's ask, although she denied that. But here we are with Madison County Sheriff, and it makes sense.
It's very interesting because you're mentioning the public safety, right? And that is something that Bruce Blakeman has really run on. And also he has run on the fact that he is a huge fan of President Donald Trump and that President Trump is a huge supporter of him. Any word on whether or not the president is endorsing in this race or has spoken out about this race? I mean, there was this video that we once ran on PIX Politics where he said, Bruce is a good guy. And that's when Elise Stefanik was still in the race.
Absolutely. They actually just on these big screens played a video from President Donald Trump. There was a lot of excitement in the room, a lot of cheers. It was about 2 minutes long. And he said, I happily endorse Bruce Blakeman. I'll be working closely with him on this campaign. And should he win, I'll be working closely with him. He kind of gave the same talking points we've been hearing here today. He ushered in safety in Nassau County. He's been friendly to small businesses. He's kind of taking a common sense approach. This is something Bruce has been pressed on if he thinks that his relationship to Trump will be an issue for him. He's actually using it as a positive that he has not ran away from Trump taken to popular pressures or anything like that, that he's honest about his political intentions and steadfast.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting because at one point there was Elise Stefanik who was in the race on the Republican side of things, and she abruptly, right around Christmas time, said, she was pulling out of the race, and many assumed it was because that maybe Trump's approval rating in New York State overall was lower, and that she was a huge advocate and supporter of President Trump. But, it's interesting because Bruce Blakeman does have an uphill battle, right, Emily? I mean, the Democrats continue to outweigh Republicans in these races, although Democrats have kind of lost support over the years.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's something that we're talking about here. I think the big thing, which was definitely a discussion in the 2024 election as well, is that independent voter population, the group of people who are undecided. The New York Public Interest Research Group says that that's the fastest growing voter bloc in New York State, is these undecideds. And so that is really kind of where the Republicans are going to have to target here. There has been growth in recent presidential elections of Republican voters as Democratic voters have waned. But in terms of voter registration, it's not going to be there. They'll have to find it in the independents. And that's what the committee members here today have been telling me, that they're kind of looking to run a common sense, independent type campaign here, that they're not necessarily going to swell the Republican movement before the election.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not like it's never been done before. Governor Pataki was the last Republican governor. I believe that was 2007?
2007.
Yeah. And so it has been done before. This is also the first year, Emily, and I don't know if you can speak to this, but usually a lieutenant governor runs on a separate ticket altogether, and this is the first year that it's really a joint ticket, that when you go to cast your ballot, you're voting for one team.
Yeah, and this is very interesting. I think that might, perhaps be why we're seeing some of this back and forth on both sides, that the pick is not necessarily smooth sailing.
Yeah.
I think it's just a good opportunity to pick set priorities. And we saw this over in New Jersey. That was also kind of new when Mikey Sherrill picked her running mate, Dale Caldwell. That was a newer thing in New Jersey as well. And it just became a bigger opportunity to set my priorities. So you have a kind of second set of priorities that come onto the ticket. And so you have this sheriff who is saying, I will beef up police, which is something Bruce talks about, but it then allows Bruce Blakeman to focus more on things that he's done, like ban on transgender athletes is something that's big in the campaign. So I think it changes things because it opens up an opportunity to put more issues at the forefront. So the public safety might not have to be a huge talking point for Bruce Blakeman because he'll have a sheriff running with him.
Yeah, all very interesting. And so that big moment happening this afternoon, great reporting there on the ground, Emily. But I also want to talk to you because you were at the big city council hearing yesterday. And there was a city council hearing basically about the 18 cold weather deaths that we've seen so far because of this cold snap that we're in, and whether or not the Mamdani administration was doing enough to get folks off the streets. And the city council had this hearing. We had Crystal Hudson on the PIX11 Morning News yesterday, where I asked her to kind of grade the mayor, on how she thought the mayor was doing. And she said, well, you can't put a grade on 18 deaths. So you were there at the hearing. This is really the first test of the council versus the Mamdani administration. And many of these council members who came out and fully supported Zohran Mamdani during his election campaign. So how did it go yesterday?
Yeah. So, I mean, the overwhelming consensus is what you heard from Crystal Hudson, which is that the administration was seemingly underprepared. And I think the council is really looking at this as a failure. The social services commissioner told us at the hearing that a general year, there will be between 10 and 20 deaths related to hypothermia in the city. We're at 15 confirmed caused by hypothermia just from this storm. So they're expecting us to be way over that average this year, which is concerning. I think that there was also some disappointment with the administration because two of the commissioners who were testifying are outgoing commissioners.
Right.
And the Mamdani administration failed to send a deputy commissioner as well to kind of pass that torch. So a lot of council members were saying it's kind of a bad faith gesture not to send someone who's going to be in their position for more than, say, one more month.
Or a day. I mean, today is Zach Iscol, the emergency management commissioner's last day.
Very last. Yeah. And so there was that question of what we're doing here today becomes kind of irrelevant because you have no one to carry on what we decide.
Yeah. What was the overwhelming, I guess, question that they wanted to know the answer to? Was there enough outreach of getting folks off the street?
Yeah, the outreach was a big question. There was some questions that never got resolved around staffing of outreach coordinators. That was kind of never got resolved. There was a huge question around practices related to hospitals. The medical examiner and the council members were saying that one of the people who died was found with hospital discharge papers in his pocket, and a second person who died was found just outside of a hospital, seemingly trying to get there. So there was a lot of question as to how are these things logged and tracked? How are we deciding that someone can be safely released from the hospital in an emergency situation like this? And then there was a lot of question about what decisions are made to bring someone inside, whether that be by the NYPD or the Department of Social Services. What are you looking at as signs that a person is a danger to themselves or others when the conditions are so extreme? Yeah. Some council members like Julie Menin were saying, I would say being outside at all is a sign that someone is a danger to themselves, worthy of forcing them to come inside. But of course, other council members were saying, these are adults. They have to have their civil rights respected. There does have to be some threshold where a person can decide they don't want to be brought into a shelter or a hospital.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big thing. And we had somebody on the PIX11 Morning News this morning talking about what constitutes somebody being involuntarily removed, if they're in a mental health crisis or they can't really understand what's happening on the outside. All very interesting. And Molly Wausau Park, who is the Commissioner of Social Services, she is also, like you said, outgoing. Did she address it all? Because there were some sources that were telling me they felt like maybe she was the fall woman for all of this. But did she come out and say anything yesterday about the timing of her resignation? Because I know we're reporting that that she's saying it wasn't related, but I wasn't sure if she actually addressed it.
There wasn't much discussion of that. And I would have to say there wasn't much political discussion at all. Even these mentions of the Mamdani administration not sending the deputy commissioners was very brief. Not very hostile. Okay. There was kind of a sense that they really wanted to get down to the details. So there were hypotheticals being thrown. Multiple people were kind of haphazardly sworn in so they could answer questions like FDNY personnel, someone representing hospitals. There was kind of a barrage of questions, all kind of technical. So the sense from the council was that they were really wanting to avoid this happening again. And one key kind of talking point is that the first weekend of this storm, January 25th, 26th, was deadlier than the second half of the storm this past weekend. And the second half was actually way colder. So there was a lot of questioning of how can we look back and see what we did wrong that first weekend? And is that not a sign that we were underprepared? Some council members were saying yes. I mean, obviously, the commissioners were saying no, we were completely prepared. Right. There's just, only so much you can do. And that there are other issues. I mean, the Commissioner of Social Services spoke a lot about having to look at this issue beyond a moment of crisis. Yeah. You can kind of only do so much once you have a situation where the housing crisis and homelessness is so out of control. There's not much you can do in the crisis.
Got it. Okay, Emily, great reporting. Great to have you on the ground there on Long Island today, and good conversation. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
All right. PIX on Politics this week, everybody. We are going one-on-one with the new Department of Correction Commissioner, Stanley Richards, the first formerly incarcerated person to now lead the Department of Corrections and what his plans are for Rikers Island, right? We're also going to talk to Crystal Hudson. We just talked to Emily about that hearing yesterday. We're going to get her take on what exactly she thought coming out of the hearing and whether or not she got the answers that can help prevent this in the future. So that's all this Friday on PIX on Politics. But in the meantime, have a great day. I'll see you next time.